All right, folks, how are we doing tonight? Last day of July 2023. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in here. We're going to be covering current events, cryptocurrency, and the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. And the thing about it, when we talk current events, unfortunately, these days, we're talking about a lot of corruption. And you guys know where we're going to be going here tonight. I appreciate everyone for tuning in here. As always, we're going to run up a session here and have a lot of fun with it. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with me. And really do appreciate all of your support. Now, with that being said, we are going to get it fired up. YouTube, TikTok live for the night, 8 p.m. on the West Coast. Really do appreciate your support. And what we're going to be doing is sharing out the stream here. I apologize. Ripple still under attack is the title of tonight's show. Just had to send out a quick message on the X.com platform. Let's get it rocking and rolling. TikTok, YouTube, 8 p.m. on the West Coast. Late night live, but we had to do it because we have so much taking place on a daily basis. So we're going to run up the late night sessions and the real ones will find us. You guys come in and you guys appreciate the content and you show your support by smashing that thumbs up for me. If you are new here and you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. And you guys already know my spiel. It's all at my website, ZachRector.com. So with that out of the way, let's get straight into the update. Ripple still under attack. Markets are dropping right now. So we're just gonna send it right now, guys. We got a lot to cover. So thank you for hanging out with me. Now, cryptocurrency, looking at this market, down 28,914 for Bitcoin, 1827 for Ethereum, and Tether still pegged for now, 68 cent XRP. 68 cent XRP. Let's take a look here at the charts, folks. We're looking at a massive red candle. And I joke because actually, if you look at this move, it's like 3%. From the most recent highs that we hit just a couple of days ago, it's down like 3%. So it's actually nothing, right? When you look on the macro time frames, these assets are remaining incredibly resilient. An alternative is what so many people want across this planet right now is to get away from fiat currencies, to get away from these currencies that continue to get devalued and continue to be basically exposed on a daily basis. When we look at the United States, when we look at what's taking place in Japan, we're going to break it all down here tonight, but you guys know our deal. We covered the update this morning, $100 to $500 XRP price prediction. We have fun. We put out a little video talking about a crazy XRP price prediction, and it never fails. When you make content like that, you get 50% of the people are saying you're absolutely wrong. This is way too conservative. 500 will be nothing. And then on the other spectrum, you get folks that say we're not even going to $5. This is irresponsible to talk about. This is ridiculous. But then, like I said, on the other side, you got folks that are, why are you calling it a crazy price prediction, Zach? Because there's people that are calling it a crazy price prediction. It's not me calling it a crazy price prediction. I am crazy. Our community is a little crazy, but we've been right. But our businesses are doing great. We are growing our families, and we have been blessed by someone, whoever you want to identify with. Whoever you believe in, we've been blessed by someone, and we're going to continue to press down full throttle until the day we die. And God willing, we're going to be able to strike down this evil as well. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Like I said, we get into the current events at the beginning of the episode. And unfortunately for us here in America, we're talking about corruption mostly when we talk about the world stage current events here in this country. And I know folks say, stick to crypto. Oh, I'm from this country. This doesn't relate to me. Oh, you bet it does. You bet the world stage theatrics that are taking place in the DC dance will impact you 100%. It is all tied together. XRP is just part of the story. We're not afraid to have fun with it. But folks get confused. They think that we're XRP moon boys. No, never. We have fun. We talk about the moon. We use it to actually we trade with the moon. That's a whole nother story. I'm not going to explain it here in this podcast, in this broadcast, but we have fun. But we've been prepping. We've been setting up our businesses. We've been starting our side hustles. We're ready to invest in real estate. Precious metals have been stacked. Got a little garden. And we spend as much time as possible with our families and loved ones during these times. And that's what I mean, is that folks get confused with the facts. The facts is that we have been so focused and locked in and so clear on what our mission is over the last year in particular. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, we started making content. And now it's become even more clear, more evident why our program has been working out. And 2, why we need to double down, just like Ripple, just like all the other companies you see that are doubling down right now. Elon Musk, X.com, about to make it, handle half the money in the world, half the payments in the US, right? The Everything app. Big, bold moves being made on the world stage, from Elon Musk all the way to Donald Trump, all the way to the Biden family. And that's why tonight we're going to have to cover the current events and the corruption at the highest levels that we continue to see here. Let's get right on into the update, guys. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in with me. God bless you guys. Let's look at it. Hunter Biden business partner Devon Archer confirms Joe was on more than 20 calls with his son. This is straight up treason. Huge. Devon Archer testifies Joe Biden met with Moscow mayor's wife in Georgetown. She then wired $3.5 million to the little guy. Remember, actually, I'm not supposed to use their names. We got the little guy, we got the big guy. You guys know the deal. We got little guy, we got the big guy. And you got to make sure you pay your cut to the big guy. Now, in this case, $3.5 million wired to the little guy right after the big guy meets with the Moscow mayor's wife. What did that get them in return? They were left off the sanctions list. This is corruption that we're seeing at the highest level. It's going to impact and unravel right here. And unraveling is what's going to impact everyone, not just in the United States, but across the world. Because we are still getting fed nonsense like this from Jim Cramer, says a recession is no longer in sight. This is what's being pumped to the masses. This is the mainstream news narrative. But what we find on the streets, on Main Street of America, what's taking place in the real household, it's this right here. 40% of U.S. adults report having less than 1,000 savings. The perfect storm of no financial education in schools and government led destruction of the U.S. dollar. 40% of U.S. adults have less than $1,000 of savings. Define recession for me, please, Jim Cramer. Where does this tie in? Please show me the maths on how we decided that there's no recession right now. The U.S. saw a total of 340 bankruptcies in the first 6 months of 2023. This is more than the first half of 2020, when the U.S. went into a full lockdown. It's the highest number of first half bankruptcies since 2010. Businesses are feeling the pain of higher interest rates. As we've been talking about, every single business sector gets impacted, disrupted. Chaos reaches every industry. One of the biggest freight liners in the United States, Yellow, might even be the biggest, I'm not sure. Bankrupt, filing for bankruptcy, closing its doors as of this weekend. And so you're seeing it across the board, every single sector right now. And we have Jim Cramer hitting the mainstream saying that a recession's not in sight. A recession is already here. Please define a recession for me. Because the textbook definition, Economics 101, was 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. We did that last year. And I'm sorry for those who have been with me since last year. You've heard me continue to reiterate and bring about this point because it's just ridiculous to see how they've switched the narrative, and what's up is down, what's left is what's right, and whatever you want to identify as. If we don't want to call it a recession, it doesn't have to be a recession. If it makes us feel uncomfortable, we don't have to call it a recession. If we want to get more clickbait views, then I would only put out bullish nonsense like Jim Cramer and all the other clickbaiters. But we don't. We're not afraid to call it for what it is. And the reason why we do so is because I want you guys to be prepared. 340 bankruptcies in the first 6 months of this year. And what does that data point tell us? It's the highest number of first half bankruptcies since 2010. Since the Great Financial Crisis. Well, if you want some more data that's just as bad as the Great Financial Crisis, let's go to our next slide. This is what retail sales data looks like when you print $4 trillion and hand it out. Everyone spends the money, consumer spending falls at a historic pace, and then the world pays the price with 40-year high inflation. There's no such thing as free money. but everybody wants a free lunch. Everybody wants a participation trophy. That party is over. You better have a real business, and you better have a real dollar, a real currency. And so what you're seeing right now is the disruption over here in the currency war. Japan's 10-year government bond is now at a 9-year high. The higher this goes, the more it will be felt worldwide. Let's get a further breakdown from Peter Schiff. Japan is the largest holder of U.S. treasuries, with the yen falling and oil prices surging. Japanese bonds will come under intense selling pressure. This will put more downward pressure on the yen and upward pressure on already too high Japanese inflation. Japan will dump its treasuries. So the largest holder of U.S. treasuries, Japan, may have to be forced to start dumping their treasury bonds, the U.S. treasury bonds. Now, what are we seeing? We're seeing our allies move away from the dollar, and then we're seeing our enemies, or those on the other side, not only dropping the dollar, but also dropping our bonds at the fastest pace in decades as well. So we move on over to the BRICS nations and what they're planning. They are going to be discussing a new BRICS currency at the summit, says Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Overchuk. Alexei Overchuk, he's the Russian Deputy Prime Minister, says that they will be actually talking about a new BRICS currency. Here's the main take home for you guys, is that if they're mentioning, if there's rumors circulating, if they're maybe talking about it, they're already talking about it. The meetings have already been taking place. As we saw this last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin going to Africa for the Africa summit, and I have to confirm the data, but it appears that he forgave a lot of debt of some of these African nations. Looks like he forgave a lot of debt. And as we've been saying, all of these BRICS nations are pulling up to Africa, South America, and other regions with a new deal. It's an alternative deal, and it doesn't include the dollar, and it doesn't include a weaponized reserve currency. It's going to include a neutral reserve currency discussion at the next month's summit. And you better bet, as a digital asset investor would say, dimes to donuts, that they've already been in discussion. You betcha. Now we're going to continue on here with China. China's solar power capacity increased 61 gigawatts in the first half of 2023. Silver demand is undergoing a revolution, and a run on remaining supplies is about to commence. The market is cornered just as bullion banks are pressing shorts. The upcoming silver squeeze will be epic, shared here by JC, and the setup that we see is truly incredible. Now, continuing on, they're trying to keep these vaults filled, and they are getting desperate. COMEX silver vault totals rise 3.16 million ounces, topping 281 million for the first time in 4 months. So just 4 months ago, we were back at these levels, but to do so, they had to add 3.16 million ounces. For those of you who have been tapped in here at this channel and been watching this saga with the silver, you know, every time here recently that they've added 1 million to the vault, the next day 2 million gets drained. They add 600,000 to the vault, the next day 1.2 million gets drained. And you're seeing institutions in the paper contracts get exposure to these metals as well. Bank of America up to 30 something thousand ounces of gold. Might even be 137,000. They got some exposure to the gold futures contracts. We'll just trust me on that. And then when it came to silver, it was 8.8 million ounces. I remember that one. Now, that's Bank of America. That's just one bank. That's just one institution. And you have to remember that we just got the Basel III rules implemented last week here in the United States. And this is really pressing forward. This is really visible for all to see, including the vaults getting drained. And then they're trying to fill them back up. And so what I'm going to be watching out for next here, they just added, and recall, just last week, we drained 3.1 million. So they just added back 3.16. They're trying to keep up. They're struggling. And so we see 3.16 million ounces added. Let's see, over the next few days, it's going to be interesting to see how much gets drained. And this supply, they're trying to keep it up. And, we're going to reiterate the point and to bring it home. I'm about to show you guys the crypto news where we're still making memes. We're still making rug pull cryptocurrency projects. And when it relates to the precious metals, these other countries aren't playing games either. And so we've been seeing them pick up the solar demand with silver capacity. And you're seeing that there's been a 230 million ounce deficit in silver. You're seeing that them actually ramp up the incoming gold coming in, the importing of gold to China, to Russia. And these countries are already heavy gold producers, but they're bringing in boatloads, literally boatloads. But then, as I'm about to show you guys with the cryptocurrency news, China to develop a blockchain infrastructure system in Shanghai by 2025. The most recent reports over the past couple months is that they've flipped back to going pro blockchain infrastructure, doubling and tripling down, and they're going to put all their resources towards it. So they're going to be moving quickly. What are we doing here in the United States? Well, we're still making meme coins and rug pulls. Over the weekend, someone created a meme coin called Bald on Coinbase. Coinbase's ETH Layer 2 that reached a $85 million market cap in 48 hours. Just got rug pulled and dropped 85% almost instantly. So there you have it. Someone created a meme coin called Bald, pumped it to an $85 million market cap in 48 hours, and rug. That didn't last very long. Bald 100 million rug was indeed Sam Bankman-Fried or an exec from Alameda. Collection of evidence below from Mac in BTC. Now, I'm not going to spend the time going over this data. All I'm going to say is that we've already seen the massive, rampant manipulation from Binance, from Justin Tron, and from the gang, and from Sam Bankman-Fried. Absolutely, that's how they went bust, is CZ was part of making FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried go bust. And so it is no surprise over here on this channel for our community to see another meme coin created, another $100 million meme coin created and rug pulled instantly. And we act surprised when we continue to see the SEC launch further into Operation Choke Point. Now, it also is no surprise that they were going to go after this guy. We were waiting for the SEC to actually go after someone who was committing fraud and who actually, was potentially harming investors, and we'll let him have his day in court. But it has been announced today that the SEC sues Richard Hart, Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X, including securities violations, is a Section 17, which is fraud. The allegations are vastly different than what was alleged in the Ripple case. Ultimately, things could go very differently for Richard Hart. Now, I want to read this out real quick. Richard Schuler, also known as Richard Hart, this is the creator of Hex, right? Is an American-born internet marketer, content creator, and serial entrepreneur living in Finland. Hart operates through 3 unincorporated alter ego entities, Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X, beginning in December 2019 and continuing for at least the 3 years following. Hart raised more than $1 billion in unregistered offer and sale of crypto asset securities. Now, that's the part that I find interesting. They're calling them crypto asset securities to retail investors in the US and abroad. Hart engaged in 3 separate offerings, Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X. Each was and is a crypto asset security by Hart. Hart continually touted these investments as a pathway to grandiose wealth for investors, claiming that Hex, for example, quote, was built to be the highest appreciating asset that has ever existed in the history of man, end quote. Hart hired and directed developers to build and maintain the software framework to support Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X. Although Hart claimed these investments were for the vague purpose of supporting free speech, he did not disclose that he used millions of dollars of Pulse Chain investor funds to buy luxury goods for himself. Now, one might have to ask that everyone should have known that that's what he was using the funds for. He was showing us all on social media, right? Everyone should have known that investing in Hex and the Pulse Chain ecosystem, you were investing in Richard Hart's luxurious lifestyle of Louis bags and silly stuff, you know? And you actually had Hex, and golly, we're going to have the Hex bros coming after us, and that's not what I'm here for. You're going to have, and I heard the Hex bros telling us that it was actually good that we had Richard Hart flexing like that. It was good marketing. which I get it. Yeah, it brought you attention. Now you have $1 billion lawsuit, which I don't know if that's the total number. They allege that he raised over $1 billion, but I don't know what damages they're seeking. I don't know if they actually plan on protecting investors. You know, many people who bought into Hex since the all-time high, they've been nothing but down, even though they've added more Hex to their bag through staking and receiving Pulse Chain and receiving Pulse X or whatever the program was over there. The value, though, was dropping so quickly on those tokens that they were still, many of them, not making money. Now, of course, if you're a Hex bro and you're going to let me know in the chat how you've still made a bunch of money and Richard's innocent, then, I'm for everyone having their day in court. I'm just saying that, one might argue that everybody saw that he was flexing on the gram, as the kids would say. But nonetheless, this is where they're alleging fraud against Richard Hart. And additionally, so it says that he used millions of dollars of Pulse Chain investor funds to buy luxury goods for himself. Hart, Hex, Pulse Chain, and Pulse X violated the federal securities laws through the unregistered offer and sale of securities. Additionally, through the misappropriation of investor assets, Hart and Pulse Chain defrauded their investors. And so that's just the beginning of the complaint that the SEC has filed, and they're going to be going after Richard Hart. And maybe I should check. Should we send out a quick prayer for the Hex bros real quick? Hopefully they can make it. Hopefully it works out. It's down 29% today. So it's down to 0.00611, down 26% today. Okay. So a moment of silence for the Hex bros. God bless them. But, I mean, many of us saw this coming. We were just wondering and waiting, were they actually going to take down Richard? I figured that they would, because there was going to be a big enough check, and as I've been saying, the SEC has plenty of ammunition to now turn the crosshairs on all these other projects that were legitimate frauds, legitimate Ponzi schemes, and legitimately raised funds from investors that does, constitute an investment contract. Just like Ripple's part of their case moved on to trial, the sales to institutional investors, those same sales to institutional investors and the SEC is still going to allege to retail investors got defrauded as well. So that's the move that they're making here. And I think that, they're going to have a very strong case. I really do. If I just had to give you my quick opinion, I think that they will have a very strong case against Richard Hart and Hex and the companies. And maybe he was a genius that was able to do it in a way that, they're not going to be able to come after him, or he's going to go hide on some island. But, once again, I reiterate the point, bringing it back as we started out. We need to get rid and we need to clean up this space. And it only comes from clarity from Congress. And so we need to continue to hammer our representatives to finally get their acts together. And they've started. They've had talks. They've passed a few bills in committees. But now they're going to be on recess for the next month. And so while they're on recess, over the next month, when we see them at the county fair and we go up to our representative and we shake their hand, we got to ask about crypto. Hey, what's the program here? What are we going to get done? Along with many other things too. But it has become a national security point when it comes to DLT technology, quantum computers, quantum financial system, and how this technology can not only impact us financially in a new financial system, but also militarily too. Right? And that's where a lot of the quantum technology has been worked at, is on that military level. Right? And meanwhile, we're still making memes. We're still making a coin and flexing Louis bags here in America. And Richard Hart, I get that he's not really... is he American? Can any of the Hex bros clarify whether or not he's American or what his deal is? And so, like I said, let him have his day in court. We'll see how it goes. I'm praying for the Hex bros. I hope it works out. But I say stand strong, because I titled this session "Ripple Still Under Attack," because the XRP community fought like hell for 2.5 years, and we're still fighting, and Ripple's still fighting. And so I'm going to show you guys right here. We're taking a look at this one. John Reed Stark, who is a former SEC, he's the Office of Internet Enforcement. So John Reed Stark, he used to be pretty high up at the SEC. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. But now he is all excited because a judge in the Southern District in New York has gone against the Ripple decision. So he puts newsflash, got to get your clickbait in. John Reed Stark, got to participate. Newsflash, Ripple decision already in big trouble, he says. Let's take a look here, folks. And so we got a judge, Jed Rakoff, today allowed the SEC to go forward with its case against Terraform Labs and founder Do Kwon. So this is the Do Kwon Terraform Labs case that we're talking about right here. Now, what we're looking at is, in doing so, Judge Rakoff specifically rejected the distinction made in the Ripple case between public and institutional sales. Read the decision here. He gives us the link. But basically, he wasn't going to provide distinction between the sales made to public retail and institutional sales. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing. Right now, we already got the breakdown, and Stuart Alderati provides it right here. He says, let me be clear about some confusion going around. The ruling in the Terra case changes nothing about the Ripple ruling. The XRP is not a security. Also, the Terra case is just starting, and that judge has to accept everything that the SEC alleges as true for now. Our ruling came after a full factual record developed over 2.5 years was presented to the court. I'll let others dive into the Terra judge's comment, including his apparent misreading of the Ripple judge's reasoning. Example, missing the point that secondary market traders can't invest money in anyone or anything if they don't know who they are buying from. And so that is the distinction here. And you're going to start to see more FUD come on out when you guys wake up tomorrow morning. This is a late night live session here. It's 8:33 on the West Coast. So when you guys wake up tomorrow morning, you guys are going to see it hitting the headlines. More FUD for Ripple and XRP. You better believe it. And we have former SEC officials that are getting in on the action. John Reed Stark. God love him. God love them. And so they're going to be taking advantage of this, as many have already been saying. You guys have already seen all these experts reporting on the mainstream crypto sources saying that we're probably still going to get an appeal. The case isn't that strong, this and that. They aren't commenting on how this ruling impacts Ethereum or the tens of thousands of tokens that were created on the Ethereum free pass Ponzi scheme monopoly. They're not commenting on that. But they are, still trying to spread Ripple XRP FUD. Now, Stuart Alderati gives a perfect breakdown of what we're talking about here. I'm going to play a clip here from Stu. This is 3 minutes and 33 seconds long. Huge shout out to Stuart Alderati, Chief Legal Officer at Ripple. And he's going to provide answers on the confusion about securities, investment contracts, and digital assets. Let's let it roll. Thanks, Stu.
What do digital assets have to do with orange groves, barrels filled with whiskey, payphones? Who remembers those? And beavers? Well, it turns out a lot. None of those things, standing alone, are securities, but any one of them can be packaged into a contract for an investment that may be a security. Huh? Let me break this down a bit. The law lists a bunch of things that are securities. That list includes things you ordinarily think of, like a share of stock. Why is a share of stock always a security? If you own a share of stock in, let's say, Apple owes you a fiduciary duty, and you can hold Apple accountable if they don't fulfill those obligations. That's true no matter how you bought the stock or who sold it to you. But the law also includes something called an investment contract in the list of things considered a security. An investment contract is not like a traditional share of stock. And anyone who tells you that, well, let's just say they're trying to confuse you. Investment contracts are contracts that I sell to you with the promise that I'm going to take the money you gave me and do things to increase the value of your investment. I can take a bunch of orange groves and sell those to you. That's not an investment contract. Or I can sell you some of those orange groves as part of a larger set of promises to cultivate those groves, sell the oranges, and distribute the profits back to you. That's an investment contract. So, orange groves alone, whether I sell them to you or you buy them on an exchange, no investment contract. The very same orange groves, coupled with a promise that I sell directly to you, that I am going to work to make those orange groves profitable, that entire bundle of promises is an investment contract and therefore a security. But the orange groves alone are still just orange groves. Some would like you to think that a digital token can in and of itself be a digital asset security. It can't. Standing alone, it's just a commodity or a virtual currency. As a virtual currency, you may use it for a payment. As a commodity, you may trade it like gold or oil or pork bellies. Confused? Well, I don't blame you, because some have been doing their best to confuse you for years. Because the Securities and Exchange Commission only has jurisdiction over securities, not orange groves, and they don't like that. Like a hammer, they want everything to be a nail. But the law doesn't work that way. While retail holders of crypto certainly deserve protection from bad actors, not all roads lead to the SEC. Pretending to have jurisdiction when there is none is simply a political power play. It helps no one. It hurts everyone. Remember, a token by itself, not an investment contract, despite what the SEC would have you believe. I hope that helps.
Now, isn't that just incredible, Stu, giving us that breakdown in such a simple, perfective way? A little quick 3-minute, 33-second video. Thank you, Stuart Alderati, Chief Legal Officer at Ripple. And here's the key takeaways, folks, is that you have to have that investment contract. Here's where Ripple may win. Is those 1,700 allocation contracts, right? They are contracts to distribute XRP, right? They are contracts to allocate XRP. But do they include a promise? No. Ripple's selling to you directly, and you are going to use XRP for your own use case, your own utility. You are not given a promise or an expectation of profit by Ripple. So even though there are contracts, 1,700, that have been cited as evidence in the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, that does not mean that those constitute an investment contract with expectations of profit in a common enterprise, right? But what you do have is you have distribution or allocation contracts. We're going to give you 5 billion XRP, for example. We're going to give you 1 billion XRP at whatever price. There is no expectation of profit. There is no promise. So you don't have an investment contract just because it's coming from Ripple. We know Judge Torres says that the underlying asset XRP in and of itself is not a security. But the investment contracts that Ripple made with institutions, those are securities. Now, when this gets to come up and potentially get heard out in trial, if it does go to trial, which I hope, I was going to say, I love listening to Stuart Alderati and the rest of their lawyers. They had a guy named Solomon on their team. Their Ripple they were just killer lawyers that they had on their team. I was actually hoping that it would go to trial and that we could watch, it'd be mainstream news. That would be a lot of fun. But this is the part of the case that I think that Ripple is potentially going to fight unless they get a great settlement terms. Because even though Ripple has contracts to distribute XRP to a bank, to an institution, doesn't mean that it's an investment contract with a promise for profit, of an expectation of profit. So this is where Ripple actually has a lot to stand on right now. And I think that many people are confused. And then obviously there's a lot of FUD. Many people that still don't even think that Ripple has a strong case. They still think that XRP could potentially be a security, even though the law of the land as it stands today, and until we see an appeal, until we see a ruling from a judge overturning Judge Torres' ruling, right? All that happened today was a judge that's in the Terraform Do Kwon case said that I'm not going to distinguish, as of right now, I'm not going to distinguish whether or not something is a security, whether or not it was sold to retail or institutions. In Judge Torres' ruling, she said XRP in of itself is not a security, but the institutional sales are. That proceeds. But we get to find out what might, if this does go on, we'll get to find out what is in those contracts, how they were written up. And as I've been saying, just because they had contracts with institutions to distribute XRP, it does not mean that it was an investment contract, does not mean that it was a security. And I cannot imagine that Ripple, with some of the best lawyers in the world, would allow themselves to structure those contracts in a way that had a promise and an expectation of profit in Ripple's enterprise. And in particular, maybe some of those early ones, the R3 deal, touches on some points. The R3 deal definitely touches on some points. It's an options contract, and there was an expectation from both sides. That's interesting. But when you look at what Ripple did, is they flipped and they switched their program. They only started selling XRP to their on-demand liquidity institutional bank partners. Now, these banks and institutions and payment providers, these MoneyGrams, these others, had an intent to use XRP for their own utility, not to gain a profit. Now, even if they did want to make their own profit, right, that doesn't mean that it was in that investment contract, Ripple's guaranteeing a profit or claiming to provide an expectation of profit. Ripple simply saying, we have billions of XRP. If you want billions of XRP, you can sit across from us at the table. We can structure a deal that works for both of us. And oh, by the way, we've now changed how we write these deals and how we structure these deals for our on-demand liquidity partners. So these are simply just distribution allocation contracts. They are not investment contracts, which is a key distinction. And I believe that the SEC will lose at the, in this case when it concludes. I think that they will lose, or they settle up. And which, once again, if they settle up, it's a ruling that only applies to Ripple. We have a ruling that only applies to XRP in of itself, but it does apply to tokens kind of across the board, as long as they are truly, decentralized. Even though they didn't really touch too much on decentralized, Judge Torres in her ruling didn't touch too much on the decentralization aspect, so much of it. But the SEC did ask Coinbase, we now know, to stop and halt trading of all assets, because you know how they deem them crypto asset securities. That's the term that they're throwing out here in this other case. They asked Coinbase to halt trading on everything but Bitcoin. Everything but Bitcoin. Now, finally, Coinbase has relisted XRP, finally getting their act together and doing the right thing. So we like to see that. But this is where this gets very interesting. Right now, we're talking about speculation for settlement. Obviously, it's been rampant. I actually had a video pull up on my TikTok on this day. It kind of is like Facebook memories, same thing. And it was a video talking about potential settlement. And I was citing a Jeremy Hogan video about Jeremy said this and that, and the moon was in this position or whatever I was coming up with, and how it might lead to settlement. And I'm just, looking back, laughing. I'm like, man, here we are a year later, and we finally have gotten an answer on summary judgment, but the case still isn't over. They're trying to still FUD us out. There's still so many haters and trolls and folks that just don't want to see the XRP community win. They think that the XRP community is just some crazy cult that just throws every last dollar that they have at XRP and does nothing else. We don't run businesses. We don't invest in real estate. We don't stack our precious metals. I was going to hold up my coins. My daughter, she stole my 1 ounce coins, but I still got my 10 ounce bar right here. But we've still been running our businesses, investing in real estate, and doing deals outside of XRP. I have a few investments in some other assets, not too many when it comes to crypto assets. But with that being said, folks, we have to focus and keep our eyes on the prize right now. We are the only asset right now in the space with true clarity. What is in question is how these contracts were written, how these contracts were done up, and that's what we get to find out unless the settlement gets done. And I suspect that for Ripple's business purposes, they would be incentivized to settle up if they didn't want these contracts to be necessarily exposed, which many of them we understand are under NDA. We've cited many NDAs. And the most recent update that we got from Ripple was that they have 5 partnerships and projects that are live with central banks right now. 5 live projects with banks and governments right now on the XRP ledger, either on the XRP ledger or utilizing the private ledger for central banks. And we have 5 that have been unannounced, which right there just tells you right there that there are NDAs in place. And there's 5 deals in place with central banks. 5 plus 5 equals 10 confirmed projects with central banks live right now. He also threw in that there's conversations with dozens, 20 plus. So we have conversations with over 20 central banks, partnerships and projects live in 10, 5 announced, 5 yet to be released. If Ripple wants to hide these, they settle. Now, there's many reasons. I'm not really going to go too much deeper on that, but there's many reasons why they would want to settle that up and hide those, because it allows them to be in a different position at the negotiating table, right? It's not a good look for Ripple. Folks say that I only speak so positive on Ripple. Well, they're doing a lot of good things. I'm sorry. They're doing a lot of great things. And they're growing ODL usage 9 times year over year. That's pretty fantastic. We went from 3 corridors to 40 corridors. Yes, I'm going to acknowledge their success. I'm sorry. Now, as I've talked about with the R3 deal, it's a deal that doesn't really look, it wasn't a great deal for Ripple. It wasn't their best deal that they ever did. And the deal fell apart. And it wasn't all on Ripple's part. R3 lost a bunch of banks and institutions that were supposed to start using XRP and on-demand liquidity. That was the whole program and the whole plan and the whole deal that they signed with R3. You get an option contract for 3 years. You can buy from 2016 to 2019 at less than a penny. 5 billion XRP. Well, then 2017 happens, and XRP rips from half a penny, upwards of 20 cents, all the way up to that new all-time high, January 2018, hitting $3.80. That's when the contract goes bust. And it also went bust because R3 lost partners like Goldman Sachs and others that had been using the R3 consortium of banks in their network. These banks dropped out of R3's deal. And so that's where Ripple was able to sue. They basically went to court and they ended up settling for only 1 billion XRP. So that's a contract. That's a deal that, isn't the best look for Ripple, right? It shows that, they were willing, and many of their business dealings have already been revealed in some of the contracts, with MoneyGram and with others, right? But what we have to focus on right now is that we have successful projects that are live on the XRP ledger, and we can now see this. We're not just talking about the private layer for central banks. We're talking about the public layer, the mainnet that me and you use as well. And so I wanted to highlight this point. Shared here by Anthony Welfare, another world first for the XRP ledger and the Palau stablecoin project. XRP ledger and all public blockchains have built-in transparency, which means you can see the transactions taking place real time. Do you have this capability with your currency? Can you, as a citizen, monitor your government payments? CBDC and digital currency have the ability for us to hold our governments to account and watch what they spend and where they spend it. Note, transparency and privacy can be set at many different levels with blockchain technology. What I am talking about here is with a completely open public blockchain, i.e. XRP ledger. Thanks to XRP Scan for the details. Now, what he's citing here is the Palau stablecoin project that is backed by US dollars. The Palau stablecoin is backed by US dollars, but it's running on the XRP ledger and it's running on the mainnet. So these folks, you can see these transactions. But he highlights, take note, that transparency and privacy can be set at many different levels with blockchain technology. What I'm talking about here is the completely open public blockchain, i.e. XRPL. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you want privacy, if you don't want the transactions to all be public, you can still provide that privacy with the CBDC or with a stablecoin in this instance as well. You can still hide those transactions, but you're still utilizing the public XRP ledger. Same thing's taking place with the private layer for central banks. Ripple said, David Schwartz said that you could create a CBDC on the XRP ledger in 1 day. So that's a nice starting point. When they pull up to the table and we know that they've been in conversations with over 20 central banks and we have 10 projects that are live right now, that's a good starting point to say, hey, this technology is so seamless and easy. When you partner up with us, we can create something in a day, by the way. Oh, and also we have a private layer for the central banks and for those that want a private layer to hide those transactions, to have that walled garden that can also bring those walls down at any time and interoperate with that public main chain. And with all the value, with all the currency pairs, with all the volume and liquidity that's being built out on the public mainnet of the XRP ledger. And oh, by the way, as we go back to the investment contracts, if you not only want to build your stablecoin or your CBDC on the XRP ledger, that's great. You might want to add some to your balance sheet. So we're ready to structure a deal to allocate or distribute you some XRP. It's a pretty good starting proposition as they sit down with over 20 central banks. And now we've also heard reports in the past that they've sat down with over 50 central banks. So, I would imagine that we have dozens confirmed. Plural, dozens, 24, 36, 50 plus from Miguel Valles, who used to be at Ripple. So folks, keep your eyes on the price. You're going to wake up tomorrow to Ripple FUD. If you guys are still with me here on a late night session, I appreciate all of you guys. If you haven't already, please smash that thumbs up. Please make sure that you've subscribed and hit that notification bell. But if you're waking up in the morning and you're watching and catching up on this episode, you've already seen and you're waking up to the headlines. The Ripple FUD is going to be there. The XRP FUD is going to continue to be there. This case will continue on. But the truth is on our side. When it comes to the investment contracts, Ripple has the truth on their side. Those contracts with those banks and institutions, they might have done some investment contracts earlier on in the very earlier days. But when they started selling to only on-demand liquidity partners, you no longer have an investment contract. What you've signed is an allocation distribution contract. And you're no longer expecting profit on your XRP from Ripple. You want to use that XRP for your own use case of ODL, treasury management, or whatever you want to use the XRP ledger for. Which, oh, by the way, we're about to get automated market makers. We're about to get an updated smart contracts amendment. And on the Twitter space last night, I had the pleasure of hosting Vet, is his Twitter handle. And he's one of the validators on the XRP ledger. Okay, and he's, I think he's one of the co-creators or founder of XRP Cafe, the biggest NFT marketplace on the XRP ledger. I think he said that they do about over 60% of the volume. And we had a great conversation last night. Had some other familiar faces and friends up, but it was nice to get another developer up in the XRP community. See, yesterday I had Ved up. The week before we had Karma Coverage up. Huge shout out to Karma for coming on and explaining automated market makers. But last night we got more explanation on AMM, more explanation on the XRP ledger from someone who's actually running a validator, actually confirming the network and actually building on the XRP ledger. And that's what it's all about. So I want you guys to make sure that you've tuned in over on Twitter, because that's where we moved the Sunday night lives. We used to do the Sunday night lives on TikTok and YouTube. We've moved those over to x.com and we're hosting our spaces now. And what I've done is I've gotten permission from wifey to come on at about 5 p.m. in the evening, my time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And she's been letting me go for a few hours. So huge shout out to wifey, and taking some precious time on Sunday to spend that with you guys. And it's opened us up for some conversations where we can go a little bit more deeper. And if you guys want to ask a question to me directly, we're calling up folks in the community and we're having a lot of fun over there. So we did that last night, and it's massive what's taking place over in the XRP ledger. And it's great to hear from people that really aren't into hype. You know, he's not like me making clickbait hype videos, right? Jokes aside, you guys know how we do it here. But, you know, guys that aren't just talking about it, but are actually doing it. And you actually set me straight on how much it costs to run a validator. I was thinking that it only cost a few $1,000. That was some numbers that I had pulled. And I don't know what I was, but I don't understand that at all. So I told Vet that I'm going to keep saving up because apparently it's, about 50 grand or so to start up a full history node. And then it can cost, well over 6 figures to maintain one, which I see why there's not that many validators confirming the network, right? Mostly what you have is, there's a few universities, but then there's a lot of folks that have businesses on the XRP ledger. And so that's what we're seeing right now. But we were talking with Vet and in the space about how now that we've got clarity, now that we know that legitimate businesses and institutions can move into this space, we're about to see way more investment. And then when we see the price action reflected as well, that's also going to take us to another level because folks aren't going to be so concerned about the money that it costs to run a validator, right? Folks are going to be glad to spend 50 racks on a validator full history node and confirming the XRP ledger. But as of right now, there's no incentive other than you're going to want to confirm the network if your business revolves around the XRP ledger, if you care about the XRP ledger. And so here I was thinking that I only had to invest a couple, 2,000-3,000, and I was, hoping to actually do this in the next year, right? After I get done buying a bunch of XRP silver and some real estate, I was going to go, start up a node. Now we got to save up. Right? I thought it was only a few thousand, but nonetheless, folks, what's taking place on the XRP ledger is absolutely massive. We love to see it. And I just want to bring home the point here, folks, that do not let them FUD you out. Do not let them shake you out. And when we cover the topics like we did this morning, XRP price predictions, 100 to 500, it gets all the views. It gets everybody talking. It gets everybody excited. But have a strategy at $10 before we figure out whether or not what we're going to do when XRP goes to 500. Right? I know folks want to think about the Lambo that they're going to buy, the new girlfriend that they're going to rent, the house that they're going to buy. And I do too. Right? I think about my exit strategy starting though at $10 before I think about 100, before I think about 1,000. And I don't think that it's crazy to talk about these price predictions. I don't think that it's ridiculous. I don't think that what I'm doing is clickbait. I think that I'm explaining our current events, talking about cryptocurrency, and explaining how I'm taking advantage of the greatest transfer of wealth in world history. And when I look around, I see that I'm one of the most transparent in the space. Everybody knows how I make it, everybody knows how I protect it, and everybody knows how I'm trying to multiply it. XRP and other investments. And that was the topic of conversation last night. As you guys know, here, tune into our show every night. We're covering the news and we're bringing it home to you guys in a way that's actionable, that you can actually gain education so that you can take effective action. I'm not here to be your financial advisor. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm never going to trade for you. Watch out for the scammers right now that say that I want to trade for you. That's not me. I'm not sending you a DM. I'm not reaching out to trade for you. Watch out for these scammers. They are prevalent right now. And in our position on all of these platforms, it's a full-time job to block and report all of these scammers. I wish it wasn't the case, folks. Quick comment on that. I apologize. I wish it wasn't the case. We have multiple eyes on it. And literally, it's a full-time job when you have all of the platforms and you got them coming at you every single post you make. Every single hour, a new scammer presents itself. So please watch out. Someone sent me a thing the other day that someone took my platform on Truth Social. I've never been on Truth Social. I have no Truth Social account. But the scammers take advantage. They move in over there. Somebody did. So watch out, stay safe, keep your eyes on the prize, and we cut through the FUD, we cut through the confusion, and we make sure that our community is going to be able to take care of our families and grow our investments as well as protecting them. So with that being said, folks, we talked about the metals tonight. You guys already know the deal. I don't have to say it. I don't have to repeat it. If you don't already know, we will help you get your precious metals. Okay. Let us know if we can ship them directly to you. Let us know if we can roll over your 401k retirement account savings. We can do both. Roll over your 401k, roll over whatever program you got, or get them shipped directly to you so you can have a shiny little rock in your hand. Huge shout out to Tony Huggins with a 10 spot. What was the message? Close the door behind us. Business is business. Let's go. We got to keep pressing on. We got to stay focused on what we control on a daily basis, and that's what we've been breaking down. every single day. We're watching not only the crypto markets, we're watching the traditional equity markets, we're watching the precious metals markets and commodities, oil back above $80 per barrel, watching that setup, 2 million barrel per day deficit. See, and folks wonder, folks really thought that I was just a crypto moon boy. And when you guys spend an hour with me here listening to me rant, you understand that we're covering all of our bases, right? We go through the corruption at the beginning. We're talking about the crime family of the century. That's, every time we turn around, every time a whistleblower speaks, they received another 3 million. They received another 5 million. They received 5 million for the little guy, 5 million for the big guy. Okay. We started out with that. We got to get that out of the way. Then we move into the currency war. Then we move into what's taking place with the commodities and the traditional markets, the bankruptcies hitting Main Street, how this is impacting folks at home, how this is impacting their businesses. Retail sales falling off a cliff to levels that we haven't seen since the great financial crisis and since 2020 lockdowns. But yet Jim Cramer says that no recession is in sight. And then we bring it home with the cryptocurrency update, talking about how we have our buddies across the way in China who are doubling down on cryptocurrency DLT technology, working to set up crypto worldwide hubs in Shanghai and other countries. And they're already well ahead with their digital yuan. They're actually closely behind Ripple in what Ripple settled on RippleNet, believe it or not. It's funny. The currency war taking place with the digital currencies. So RippleNet has done about 30 billion in transactions so far. I'm sure that that's a lot more now. But then you also have the Chinese digital yuan, which is about 20 billion from our most recent numbers. I don't know if that's been updated since, but well over 14, 15, and approaching 20 billion probably by now on the digital yuan settlements. So they're closely behind RippleNet. They're closely behind ODL, XRP. Currency war, and we see that they're dropping our treasury bonds, dropping our dollar. They're going to be discussing a new reserve currency, a new bridge currency potentially, right? They're going to be talking about their options. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to listen to anybody. Know and understand that next month, they're not getting around to have a good time and have a drink, and because they're just friends. This is a matter of survival across the planet for countries that are moving away from the dollar, from us weaponizing the reserve currency against us in the SWIFT system, but then also being forced to dump treasuries like we're seeing potentially coming up here in Japan. So our allies being forced to dump our treasuries. Our allies like France deciding we no longer want to settle or trade in the US dollar for your oil, Saudi Arabia. Let's do a new deal, Macron. As the streets get set on fire, not only in France, but across Europe. We've been watching and we reported this weekend on how our systems have been under attack in the United States. For our community, this is nothing new. This is why we've been talking about prepping essentials and having a plan. Whether it's 10 days of darkness, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's the lights go out, whether there's a balloon in the sky, whether they blame this person, this country, this group, this religion, doesn't matter. What are you going to do to feed your family? What are you going to do to protect your family? How are we going to protect our wealth? Are we still building wealth, or are we going into recession as we see hundreds of bankruptcies being filed in the first half of this year at a pace that we haven't seen since 2010? Are you closing the door? Are you turning the key? Or are you still growing? Or maybe you're just maintaining, which is something to note as well right now. Just surviving alone right now is difficult. I went to Costco this weekend. I know how much the diapers cost. The baby wipes. Are you kidding me? Folks ask, what coin are you going to invest in next? It's called Pampers. I should invest in Pampers stock maybe. That's not financial advice, but golly. $50 for a pack of diapers? That's reality for all of us Americans. That's reality for you guys across the pond. And across the planet, we ask for an alternative to the US dollar. We ask for an alternative to the abuse of that reserve currency, into a weaponized dollar, and to a weaponized an industry here, a military industrial complex that has flexed its might across the planet and abused some of the planet in doing so. Now, I continue to say God bless our troops. I would love to see most of them brought home. I would love to not be involved in any external affairs that don't directly impact Americans or harm us. And even if I did want to support a cause, I'm not so stupid and dumb to realize that we're now spending nearly $2 trillion annualized on our interest payments on our debt. Our military budget is $800 billion. So something tells me that the maths don't maths. Even in the new maths, even in the Common Core maths, that still don't add up, does it? $800 billion military budget, not including the black budget, of course, and now we know that we have UFOs, so be ready for that. That's the next act that's coming on the stage, the UFOs, of course. $800 billion military budget, and we're going to spend over $1 trillion on our interest alone this year, and it's actually going to be pretty dang close to $2 trillion. Over $1.5 trillion for sure, probably. So the mass ain't massin'. Doesn't matter what program you want to support. Our country's bust, and our dollar will continue to be devalued. 3% inflation is a lie. They will not make it back to 2% target. And if they do, through manipulated data, we understand what's really taking place. And it's nowhere near 2% inflation. It's nowhere near 3%. It's nowhere near what they're telling us. But this is what we've known and come to understand here, is that they put their puppets on the screen like Jim Cramer to say that no recession is in sight. Meanwhile, you guys already know. So with that being said, folks, I am going to wrap up this session. It was a pleasure firing it up here for the YouTube and for the TikTok as well. I got a new setup here for TikTok, so I'm not running the TikTok on my phone right here. TikTok's running through the main screen, so they get to see me, they get to see the charts, they get to see the updates, and TikTok Live Studio new setup's pretty slick. So huge shout out to TikTok, where we got started 2.5 years ago. And like I said, folks thought that we were just a TikTok moon boy. Now we've had a year in a bear market to continue building, to continue to double down. And this is why I'm so dang excited for the rest of you guys. Is that with you guys that are tapped in and ready to deploy capital, who are still liquid, the deals of a lifetime are coming. They're already starting to present themselves. And those who are ready to act are going to be able to really take advantage of an opportunity that's only going to present itself in our lifetimes, I believe. This is a 100-year change type of event that is underway. You don't have to do a moon date. You don't have to do a decode. You don't have to solve a riddle. It's already here. So we just simply have to make sure that we have a plan, a program, strategies to implement that are going to take us across the finish line. With that being said, I hope you guys appreciated tonight's rant. We went for about an hour, approaching an hour and 3 minutes. I think that's a good time to wrap it up. Appreciate all of your support. On the way out, can you do me a massive favor by smashing it? Make sure you hit that subscribe, notification bell, and we will see you guys tomorrow. God bless all of you. Thank you.